On today's episode, we're going to look at a recent article out of Kiplinger, and it talks about 5 different key areas that make a retirement plan really just pop. We're going to look at what these 5 areas are, so let me grab Walt and we'll dive right in.
Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of Power Your Retirement. Walter Storholt is always alongside Steve Smith. He's the founder of Powerhouse Financial Advisors. And yes, we're talking about this 5 Ds of retirement planning. Steve, that's how they describe it in this Kiplinger article. The 5 keys, they all happen to start with the letter D. And so it fit into a nice article here for them to cover. And we're going to hit each of these, kind of unpack them a little bit, see what makes the sense to you as an accomplished and certified financial planner, and kind of break all this down for our audience today. So you ready to roll?
I am ready to roll, and these 5 Ds really sound like some professional sports that I used to dabble in.
Yeah. Are you referring to the 5 Ds of Dodgeball, perhaps?
The 5 Ds of Dodgeball. Every summer, we would actually go and play Dodgeball at family camp. All these families got together and did that. Of course, the references to the movies, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a bear market.
Oh, I like that. Dodge a wrench, dodge a bear market. That's a very good tie-in to the movie. Fantastic, Steve. Yes. I was actually really sad. In this Kiplinger article, they did not make the dodgeball reference, but we handled that for them here in our review of the show. So looking forward to this. So their 5 Ds are not dodge, duck, dive, dip, and dodge, I think are the 5 that they do in the movie. The first one that they hit on is diversification. So talk to us a little bit about their takeaways here and what it means to you.
Yes, diversification is a lot of things. So when we use that, I think the lowest level is people talk about diversifying a portfolio, right? So it's like, oh, we want some small, some mid, some large, international, maybe bonds, cash, stuff like that. So that is what they're talking about here, diversification. But also, you can talk a little bit about diversification when it comes to income streams too, depending on what phase of life you're in. So that first diversification applies to the whole life, but also for sure focused on the accumulation phase. But as we get into the other side of it, diversification can be in income streams and different things that are a little more advanced as well.
Yeah, absolutely. When you hear diversification, is that something you would include in your sort of keys to success for a client?
Oh, definitely. And if you think about it, you've got Social Security, right? Social Security is a wonderful income stream that most people get, unless you're on the pension variety. Maybe you got a government pension that didn't participate or something like that. But then you have that stream. But you might want to have something like in the stock market, you might want to have a portfolio that's throwing off some dividends or some kind of income there. Maybe even you want to look at maybe your company, like a lot of the companies I work for, offer a cash balance pension, which is kind of like an annuity. So there's a lot of different things to consider, but diversification is making sure that you don't put all your eggs in one basket is probably a nice way to summarize that.
I know we've talked before about how people can think they're diversified, but have so much overlap from the different things that they've picked. They're not actually diversified. They might be diversified even in stocks, but not in asset classes. And
Right.
We don't want to get too geeky down the line here in terms of trying to go through all the details of what that really looks like. But I think that's something that's often very surprising to people, probably when you review a portfolio with them.
Yeah, especially when it comes to 401ks, because a lot of them are just picking off the list. And the number one criteria is how the mutual fund or ETF did last year.
Mm.
But what I've noticed is, when you're trying to pick outperformance, especially recent, things are usually cyclical. And that's part of the diversification thing. And if you've ever seen, I wish I had one to show right this second, but the chart where it says, oh, large cap did best this year, and last year it was mid, and year before that it was small, and the year before that it was international, and the year before that it was bonds. That was a real bad year. But the point is, and then it lists it down how everything performed. Well, if you're constantly picking on what did good last year or the last year or two, it's kind of like a beauty pageant. What are the odds the same person's going to win 2 years in a row? Well, very rare, if never. So you want to make sure that you have that diversification, because if you're always trying to pick past winners, you're probably the exit liquidity of that asset class. You're buying high and then you're riding it down. So that's why we always want to be diversified. So we'll have that big winner and we'll have other ones that are waiting in the wings, so that our 10-year looks really nice rather than just guessing and hoping and praying.
Yeah, all great points. All right, the second D that was in this article, and keep in mind, we're talking about plans that hold up over time, long-term thinking. So that's always important to keep in context. That's what this article was written with, that kind of concept in mind. And so we're approaching it the same way here. Duration was their second D. So what does it, duration kind of mean in this article, and also to you, Steve?
So duration is a word we all understand, how long things last, but it's also a Wall Street gibberish number. So when an advisor is talking about bonds, duration is how many year bonds. So maybe the easiest one to understand is like government treasury bonds, because a lot of us have heard of those. Even if you don't have a lot of experience with bonds, you can buy a 2-year treasury. Maybe you'll click on CNBC and you'll see a 10-year treasury. Or maybe even they're talking about the Fed funds rate, which is like the shortest term, right there, short-term rate that they're adjusting. So that's the duration. And what happens with these supposedly, this isn't always the case, but the longer the duration, the more reward you would have, so the higher interest rate. So sometimes things get inverted. So that's not that's just a rule of thumb. But the idea is you lock up your money for longer, you should get more return.
Makes a lot of sense. Easy to kind of understand that one, I suppose. Downside protection is their third D, worth knowing before you retire. This one kind of makes sense, right? Like we don't want to go way down in our portfolios, I guess. We need some protection from the downside. Is it as simple as that?
It is not.
Nothing's ever as simple as it should be. Okay.
Right. Downside protection, it's like a cuddly blanket, right? It's like, oh, that sounds wonderful, Steve. Can you give me that? Let's just check that box. So the problem is, and I have to have a little heart to heart, and this probably takes an hour to go through everything. So we're going to put this in 60 seconds or less. But downside protection really means making less money, right? Because if you're putting bonds in there, they're going to perform worse than say stocks. A diversified portfolio of that. And international is more risk, so sometimes that's got more volatility up and down, because that's really what we're looking at. It's not always like losing your money. Sure, if you put everything in one stock, it might go bankrupt. That would be, you don't want that. That's the opposite of downside protection. But the issue always is downside protection usually comes with lower returns, and that doesn't work for everybody, depending on how much you've accumulated. So sometimes we have to take a different approach. So I'm going to give another idea that I won't be able to fully flesh out here, but we also have tactical portfolios where we can take a little bit more risk, but then we've got some protection built into the portfolio, protecting you to the downside. And those work really, really well for those that are having to run their portfolios maybe a little hotter than what they might like, just because they need the income.
All good points on that one. All right, so we've covered 3 of these so far. The next D is discretionary income. And this sounds great. It sounds like, hey, I'd love some extra discretionary income. But the way they approach it in the article is that actually people don't account for this as much as they should, which I found interesting.
When we're doing the planning, we usually start out and we say, okay, what are we working with? Kind of that roadmap. How long are we going to live? That's the destination. And how much do we need to live on? So we work up some kind of budget, right? And because we need to, and usually where you start with that is, what are you living on now? How are you spending your money now? Because the day that you flip the switch, not a whole lot changes. You still need health insurance. You still need to keep the lights on. You still need to maintain your home and your vehicles and your vacation. And sometimes it can be more expensive depending on what you want to do in retirement. And other times you might save a little bit of money because maybe you're not commuting to work and things. But that discretionary income, what I always look at is, okay, what are you spending now let's find out what that discretionary income bucket is. Because I don't make them go through every single line item. I say, okay, you made X amount of dollars. Here's all the things that are accounted for. Okay, we don't have to save for 401k. Check. That's great. But everything else pretty much applies. So then we're like, okay, what are you doing with the rest of this money? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I really don't know where it's going. That's the most common answer, because it's going to Starbucks and eating out and, helping the kids and, all these things that are small, but they add up to big things. And when you retire, does that discretionary income just go away? Well, no, it doesn't. So we talk about lifestyle, and you definitely can't just plan for the big buckets. Like, oh yeah, I could probably live on that $4,000 a month. Well, you probably could, but you probably won't. That's the thing. And we need to have that hard conversation before. So discretionary income is part of everybody's life, and it's so often not accounted for, and it needs to be.
People think they're planning for their regular lifestyle when really the number that they're targeting is more of a beans and rice lifestyle, because it's not factoring in all those other things that we tend to spend money on in life that you outlined for us. We were talking about camping before we started recording today's show, folks, and Steve, I'm reminded of that exact, little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here. Anybody who owns an RV or camper knows how that goes, and I'm having my own experience with that. We took it into the shop to get the propane heater looked at, and it turns out that the last guy that worked on it put on a illegal regulator, so that needs to get replaced. And then we found hailstone damage to the vent covers up on top of the RV, and so a little simple like, hey, can you take a look at this for me, is starting to add up a little bit. So those things happen in retirement. Those don't stop from your living your normal lifetimes. So
yeah, I understand. Just my Jeep habit, the kids over the weekend had a little too much fun with it, so I had to bring that in, and that was not bad, $350 in repairs. So they were fairly nice to it, not really. But so that was a cheap weekend, as far as Jeeps go.
Yeah.
But then, of course, mine, even though I didn't take it off roading, I've got it's acting up. All it does is the chime goes off 8 times, and then 3 minutes later, it goes off 8 times. No visual, and I bring it into the dealership this morning bright and early. And they're like, oh, everything looks great. Everything's working good. I don't see any codes for that. I'm like, oh, no, we got a ghost.
It's one of those.
It's going to be expensive. They're going to replace every sensor in the whole thing.
Yep. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, just replaced the battery in ours like 2 weeks ago, dead battery after we were coming back from a trip. Fantastic. And then the funniest thing of all of this, I think, of the last 2 weeks of this camping adventure and fixing things and Jeeps and campers and all this, I was trying to kill a mosquito. And I somehow, I guess I don't know my own strength, tried to pluck it out of midair, one of those kinds of, like, it was buzzing, and I went to go grab it. And I hit the rear view mirror so hard it blew it off the windshield. Wow. So I gotta go fix that now.
Did it break your windshield or just break off the actual?
It just came out of the mount, and so I've got to look on YouTube, see if it's a DIY fix it thing or if I've got to take it into the shop. So. It's just dangling and swinging in front of my face right now. So yeah, I look real cool driving down the road at the moment. So
it's rough.
That's life, right? Hey, it was a drag when I broke the rear view mirror, but that also happens to be our number 5D from this Kiplinger article. How about that for a segue? Drag is the last one. Also, this kind of sounds like it could be one of the 5Ds of Dodgeball, drag your feet or drag across the court maybe. But no, still in the financial realm here. So our last one, drag. What is that? It sounds kind of like a technical term in a way.
Yeah, well, I like drag better than dive. Nobody wants their...
Yeah, dive is no good. That's true.
Dive. But that would work great in Dodgeball, right?
Yes.
So drag is a couple different things. You can have tax drag if you have a taxable account. So, and also, even if you have a regular traditional account, pre-tax or traditional IRA, however you want to say it, there's some tax drag there because you haven't paid taxes. So when you look at your portfolio, a lot of people are like, oh, I've got a lot of money, but they don't realize that, depending on the state you live in, 20, 30, 35% of that belongs to the government. So that can be a type of tax drag. You can also have, I mentioned earlier about that tactical portfolio that has drag in it that requires more management. So that can be that can drag. So if we don't have any 2008 or any kind of major downturn that it's protecting against, if that tactical portfolio is just in an uptrend, that's drag, that money you don't have in your pocket. Also, some people even refer to my fees as drag as well, and it can be. If I'm not doing my job and I'm not making sure that you rebalance your portfolio, that you have an appropriate risk model. We're not taking too much, not enough risk to get the returns we want. There's a lot of things that an advisor can do to provide value, but if we're not doing those things, that can actually be interpreted as drag. So you want to make sure that you have a portfolio that's being well managed, and you have a financial plan that's being well planned, and tended to and communicated, and doing those things that advisors should be doing.
Well, there's 5 Ds for you. Ultimately, it comes to one financial plan, and the goal is to build that plan to last the long haul and to and through your retirement. And if you want to run these 5 Ds, as well as all of the other planning techniques that Steve uses through your own financial plan, you can do that with a complimentary review of your financial plan and situation. Take a look at that 401k. Are you just pulling the off-the-shelf items? Are there better investments you can be in for your working life and for your career as you go through the next, it might only be 5, 10, but maybe 15, 20 more years that you have to prepare for retirement? Steve can work with you to help make sure that you are the best prepared for that big day, and also to get through that retirement phase of your life as well. If you want to get in touch, it's very easy to do so. PowerUpYour401k.com. We've got that linked in the description of today's show. That's where you can get your retirement toolkit that's packed with Steve's book and other helpful information, especially for employees of publicly traded utilities. And you can also book a time to meet with Steve one-on-one. That link also in the description of today's show to make it easy on you. So check those resources out, schedule a time to meet, see where you are with your plan, and get these 5 Ds and more in place for your financial future. Steve, thanks so much. Watch out. I'm going to throw the dodgeball at you and
right on.
Put those skills to the test.
And in life, always remember to dodge the wrench, because it hurts.
That's right. Love it.
Catch you next time.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again on Power Your Retirement.
This podcast is provided by Powerhouse Financial Advisors, Inc., PFA, a state-registered investment advisor. The information provided is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered personalized investment advice. PFA does not guarantee the accuracy, completeness, or suitability of this information for your specific circumstances. Investment decisions should be based on an individual's goals, time horizon, and risk tolerance. Past performance is not indicative of future results, and all investments carry a degree of risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any case studies, testimonials, or endorsements shared in this podcast illustrate individual experiences and may not represent the experience of all clients. They do not guarantee future performance or success. Unless otherwise explicitly stated during the episode, individuals providing testimonials or endorsements are not compensated, directly or indirectly, by PFA. Testimonials may be provided by current clients of PFA, while endorsements may be provided by non-clients. Listeners should consult with a qualified financial, tax, or legal professional before making any investment decisions. Powerhouse Financial Advisors, Inc. does not provide tax or legal advice. For a copy of our Form ADV Part 2A, which details PFA's advisory fees and services, please visit powerhousefinancialadvisors.com.